So, first of all, I start by introducing Norway's maritime domain. Let's quickly look at the experience of Norway in terms of the blue economy. Norway has a jurisdiction of over 2.3 million square kilometers of oceans, as you can see in the map that I have put on the screen there. Norway's offshore maritime domain spans from the Barents Sea up in the north, in the Arctic region, to the Norwegian seas, that is in the middle, as well as down in green, you have the North Sea. Oil and gas is Norway's most important industry, contributing over 60 billion US dollars, approximate in 2018, which amounted to about 25% of total export earnings. In addition to oil and gas, fisheries and aquaculture contribute about 11 billion US dollars in export value. Together, the shipping, shipbuilding, tourism, and petroleum services and other ocean-related activities constitute about 70% of Norway's GDP. Since 2006, Norway has adopted the integrated ocean management approach to planning and managing economic activities in its maritime domain. Now, what do we mean by integrated ocean management and the way Norway puts it into action? Now, the purpose of integrated ocean management, or IOM, is to enhance the ability to use and manage ocean resources sustainably and ensure that the health, productivity, and resilience of ocean ecosystems, which provide multiple benefits to humans, are not impaired unduly by human activities. The sustainable use of the ocean cannot be achieved. This is citing the United Nations from 2015. The sustainable use of the ocean cannot be achieved unless the management of all sectors of human activities affecting the oceans is coherent, which is to say a coherent overall approach which emphasizes the welfare of the ecosystem is needed. Finally, the problems, to also quote from the preamble of the United Nations Global Assembly, United Nations General Assembly, the 2018 resolution on the ocean and the law of the sea. It says the problems of the ocean space are closely interrelated and need to be considered as a whole through an integrated, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral approach that reaffirms the need to improve cooperation and coordination at national, regional, and global levels. So that is what you mean by integrated ocean management. That is the sort of management that looks at the combined effect of all different human activities, whether it's tourism, mining, fisheries, recreation, aquaculture, all the aspects of the blue economy, and balances them up against the effect that they are having on the ecosystem. Now, in Norway, just a little bit of history, Norway has adopted integrated ocean management, and it actually started adopting it as far back as 2002. And it started it in the Barents Sea, that was up in the north, close to the Arctic region, in order to reduce the conflict between the petroleum and traditional fishing industries. In 2002, as you will see also the graphic I've put there, the Norwegian Parliament endorsed the need for what was then called the Barents Sea Integrated Management Plan, which was going to map out the proper use of the region. Phase one of that plan was executed between 2002 to 2004. And as you can see from the diagram I've provided, it had the objective of scoping the Barents Sea region and developing status reports. So there was an implementation team which had the objective of coming up with status reports on the baseline environment and resources in the Barents situation, identifying valuable areas, looking at the socio-economic aspects and the economic activities. Phase two was on the assessment of the impact of human activities. That was conducted between 2004 to 2005. And that looked across the different sectors, the oil and gas sector, looked into the shipping sector, looked into the fishery sector, looked into the external influences sectors, right? And note that all these phases, while they were conducted, there was consistent consultation with stakeholders and local communities, as well as other users of the Barents Sea space. The phase three for the project, that is for the Barents Sea management plan, was conducted between 2005 and 2006. It was completed in 2006, and in which there was conducted an aggregated analysis that looked at the total impact of human activities, economic and otherwise, socioeconomic activities on the sea, the goals for management of the region, the gaps in scientific knowledge, and identify the vulnerable areas and possible conflicts of interest that could happen between the different users. And then the process also ended with a stakeholder conference. So at the end in 2006, a management plan for the Barents Sea region was developed and was adopted by the Norwegian Parliament and became operational. In addition to the Barents Sea management plan, Norway has also implemented similar integrated ocean management plans for the Norwegian Sea, that was between 2005 and 2009, and for the North Sea between 2010 and 2013. And indeed, the Barents Sea management plan has since been revised between 2010 and 2011 and as late as 2016. So it's actually a dynamic plan that is always revised in order to take into consideration the latest developments in science, as well as in what we find out, because given effects of changes in climate, there is an updating of the plan regularly. Now, just to let us understand that the implementation of Norway's integrated ocean management plan relies on extensive collaboration across an ecosystem of different actors. Now, steering the plan, that is the integrated ocean management, it is steered at the ministerial level. So you have an inter-ministerial group, which is comprised of the Ministry of Fisheries and Coastal Affairs, the Ministry of Environment, which actually is the lead ministry, but it works hand in hand with the other members of the steering group, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. The supporting ministries, as you see in the diagram, to the steering group are the Ministries of Finance, you have Justice, you have the Ministry of Local and Regional Government, you have Labor, the Ministry of Labor and Inclusion, you have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as the Ministry of Defense. Now, if you further look, each of these ministries now has... Yes, please.
Mr. Yanuga,
yes,
sorry
please.
to interrupt you. You know, we are so time conscious and we are enjoying what you're presenting, but we have just 2 minutes to round up because Dr. Adeluku is here and also Mr. Nee. Thank you. I have to introduce them so that we go back to them. 2 more minutes, please. Thank you.
All right, then. I'll be very quick. So, then there is a network of research institutions and other stakeholders that provide input into the integrated management plan. Another factor that is very important, the way Norway conducts its integrated ocean management is, as I've mentioned, there is strong inter-ministerial collaboration as well as a collaboration across different sectors. So all the different uses of the sea have to speak together, and then the process is steered very strongly by the inter-ministerial group. And then there is input that is collected both from the local communities as well as from the private sector and the NGOs and different actors. They are allowed to have their inputs to the plan. Now, that is for Norway. Very quickly, just to run through the case of Seychelles. Well, you have Seychelles also has a significant maritime domain, and Seychelles on the 31st of January 2018, Seychelles implemented its own Blue Economy roadmap. And very quickly, the roadmap that articulates Seychelles Blue Economy brand, it launched a maritime spatial planning initiative, issued an innovative sovereign bond to finance its projects, and put forward a prioritized agenda for action and investment to 2013. Now, very uniquely, Seychelles has been able to articulate a high-level vision for its roadmap and to integrate its Blue Economy vision into the national development strategy and the national vision and other relevant strategies. So it has been able to put in place key pillars, strategic priorities for its roadmap, as well as establish governance arrangements to ensure that the strategic and cross-sectoral oversight of the integrated ocean management that it conducts is allowed to go on in the correct way. And just to mention it by the side, that Seychelles has warehoused the Department of the Blue Economy in the office of the Vice President. So that is in order to ensure there is top-level support. Now, to conclude, what are key insights that we can gain for Nigeria's Blue Economy roadmap based on what we can see from Norway and Seychelles experiences? The first insight that I can readily point to is that there is no readily replicable template for the Blue Economy anywhere. Each country must fashion out its roadmap given its resource situation and institutional endowment. Emphasis should be on arriving at pragmatic outcomes that are ultimately implementable. The second insight is that top-level political will, political ownership, and unflinching support for the Blue Economy process are absolutely essential. The third insight is that a vibrant culture of interministerial and cross-sectoral communication and collaboration must be instituted and allowed to thrive within the relevant public sector units, in addition to adequate consultations with all relevant stakeholders. Now, the fourth insight is that the day-to-day work of driving a Blue Economy process or the roadmap needs to be warehoused with the relevant experts who have been mandated to deliver results. And these experts should be allowed to proceed and deliver on their mandate with minimal interference.
All right, thank you, and then good morning, everyone. Mine, it's a simple task, really, is just to formally welcome everyone on behalf of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group to this important pre-summit webinar. The Honorable Minister for Transportation, Right Honorable Chibuike Rotimi Amechi, the DG, Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NEMASA, Dr. Bashir Yusuf Jamo, heads of departments and agencies, industry, members of the international community, members of the press, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the board of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group to welcome you to this important important pre-summit event leading up to the 26th Nigeria Economic Summit, NESG 26. And this pre-summit event is organized by the Sustainable Policy Commission, the Sustainability Policy Commission of the NESG. This year, at NESG 26, we seek to engage stakeholders in a big conversation for action to shape strategic partnerships, chart a path to economic recovery, and also to build resilience for our economy, our business, and our households. We strongly believe that this will put Nigeria in a strong position within the changing world order brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. At NESG 26, the big conversation for action will be driven by a series of pre-summit events, such as the one we're holding now, which will help to kickstart discussions on the summit theme. And the theme of the summit is building partnerships for resilience. I believe is that this sort of pre-summit event will help us to convene a wider range of stakeholders to deliberate on a broad set of thematic and sectoral issues with key outcomes. It has become apparent that Nigeria must seize the opportunity presented by the COVID-19 pandemic to reevaluate the economic environment. One of the sectors we have to reassess is the blue economy. Nigeria is desirous to join the rest of the maritime community of nations in venturing into the blue economy. Reported assessment of the riches of the natural wealth areas of the country are citations to the country's qualification for this. And according to the Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, the ocean has the potential of generating about $24 trillion in wealth. Like we just heard from Mr. Yunga, Norway and Seychelles are good examples that we can learn from. More specifically, the Nigerian maritime sector is capable of generating an estimated 7 trillion in revenue annually and can also create more than 5 million jobs within 4 years, according to the Nigerian Ship Owners Association. Moreover, the blue economy can also help the country in its progress towards the attainment of the SDGs and towards building resilience in our maritime industry. However, despite our vast marine resources, Nigeria is currently not on track to harness the benefits of the blue economy, as myriad challenges have constrained its growth and potential. As such, there's never been a better time for the relevant stakeholders to come together, share ideas and resources to establish and implement a unified approach to building a resilient blue economy for Nigeria. It is our hope that today's public-private dialogue will help to bring together public and private sector professionals, as well as ocean enthusiasts, to share expert information that will help highlight opportunities for boosting Nigeria's blue economy. I trust that we will all contribute our quota and lend a much needed voice and support to make today's engagement a resounding success. On behalf of the board, I wish you all fruitful deliberations and thank you, and God bless our country, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf, for the welcome address. And I wish to invite the representative of the Honorable Minister of Transportation, Mr. Paul Adeluku, to have the floor. One thing I didn't also mention about Mr. Paul Adeluku is that, Dr. Paul Adeluku, is that he is actually coordinating the Blue Economy agenda in the ministry. As you may know, the Blue Economy has been domiciled in the office of the Vice President, but Ministry of Transportation and NEMASA are coordinating, and he's actually the arrowhead spearheading everything. Dr. Paul Adeluku, you have the floor, please.
Maritime stakeholders, representatives of different MDAs, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I welcome you to this electronic interaction on the development of implementable and sustainable strategic blue economy framework for Nigeria, as well as investment opportunities in Nigeria's blue economy. As we all know, the Nigerian blue economy is an emerging economic frontier and applies to ocean-based industry activities and the assets, goods, and services of marine ecosystems. Africa's Union desire to support African countries to articulate in-country blue economy strategies has been on the drawing board for some time now. This strategy is positioned around 5 major strategies and 9 distinct but mutually reinforcing sub-themes. On behalf of Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Transportation has accepted fully to mobilize players in the maritime sector in collaboration with the African Union Commission and other institutions for optimization of the potentials of Africa's blue economy in order to support new growth for Africa's coastal and sea economies. The 5 blue economic strategies, as approved by the AU and supported by institutions like the African Development Bank, include the following: fisheries, aquaculture and ecosystems conservation, shipping, transportation and trade, sustainable energy, interactive minerals, gas and innovative industries, environmental sustainability, climate change and coastal infrastructure, governance, institutions, and social actions. The sub-themes that support these strategies include the following: smart shipping, ports, transportation and global connectivity, employment, job creation, poverty eradication, cities, tourism, resilient coast and infrastructure, sustainable energy, mineral resources, and innovative industries. Suffice it to mention that the COVID-19 pandemic has created a sense of urgency for new growth and its impact, which has led to the deepest recession in the history of Nigeria, as well as brought about huge losses of revenue, jobs, and lives. The blue economy discussions we're having today represents a beacon of hope for rapid growth with the right frameworks. However, significant challenges face the blue economy strategy, and this include the increasing menace of illegal fishing in the exclusive economic zones, which has resulted in massive loss of valuable fisheries, conservatively estimated at $10 billion annually. Climate change and climate variability are already reducing Africa's aqua systems and food production, and the dumping of toxic waste, as well as indiscriminate discarding of single-use plastics, is worsening pollutions and economic losses on the Nigerian coastline. Therefore, this discussion this morning it is imperative on the urgent need to implement policies for the blue economy of this country, which incorporates best international standards and practices to drive growth and development, and will be tailored to the needs and aspirations of Nigeria and the entire continent. With the single market opportunity that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement offers, Nigeria will have access to seamless transactions. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the sustainable blue economy strategy we are discussing this morning will need institutional support and logistics from the Federal Ministry of Transportation to set up implementation frameworks and milestone-based monitoring to attract investments and track socioeconomic impacts of these investments for the benefit of the people. Towards this end, let me assure that the Federal Ministry of Transportation will liaise with NEMASA and other MDAs to ensure that the process of developing the Sustainable African Blue Economy Implementation Framework using the African Union's recommendation will provide a robust and inclusive framework representing the tenets of growth that the ministry seeks to achieve through the ultimate stimulus of the Nigerian blue economy. Without taking much of your time, I thank you for your attention and wish us all a fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul, for this presentation. And I will also to invite Mr. Abu Bamba, the Executive Secretary of the Abidjan Convention Regional CIS, to make his presentation. Now, having said that, also, I will request from all participants to kindly put their questions in the chat box for that we used to go on with the further discussion on that. Thank you very much once again, the representative of Honorable Minister of Transportation, Dr. Paul Adeliku, for your very stimulating presentation. Thanks. We invite Ms. Abubakar to have the floor now.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. All protocol observed. I'm sending you our greetings from Abidjan in the Ivory Coast. So I'm not so sure about the video. Can you see me? Okay. All right. Thank you. So my presentation of this morning is about the actually whether the state of readiness of the West African countries in terms of implementing the Blue Economy principles. I mean, the West Africa zone. So my presentation of this morning is going to be articulated around the following 6 pillars. There will be an introduction, and I will be talking about the current state of marine environment in our sub-region, as well as the state of ocean governance in our sub-region. And then there will be the transition towards the blue economy opportunities in the region. And this shall lead us to answering the main question of the presentation, which is whether West African countries are ready to implement the Blue Economy principles. And then I will draw a conclusion. I'm told that I have about 15 minutes, to go through that presentation. So I'm going to start very quickly. I don't know whether the organizers, can share my screen because I can't do it from my telephone because I'm actually talking from the phone because the computer has some problems. So I sent my PowerPoint presentation this morning. If you can share it with the participants, will be good. Thank you. So in terms of introduction, the large marine, next slide, large marine ecosystem of the Guinea Current, that brings together West African coast. We're talking about 16 countries in the sub-region, and 85% of them are coastal, while only a few are landlocked, like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. It's one of the most productive region on planet Earth in terms of fish stocks, forests, agriculture, mining, oil and gas, and etc. The economic activities are pretty diversified. Then the natural resources are abundant. However, there's a level of poverty and human development which is pretty surprising if you compare with the availability of those natural resources. The socioeconomic development potential is huge, but still unlocked. Next slide, please. So then you have like a map of the sub-region, taking countries from Senegal all the way down to Nigeria. Next slide. State of the West Africa region marine environment. So let's be clear, the situation is pretty bad. We have so many issues, ranging from pollution, invasive species, and we all know, from Abidjan Lagoon to the 6 lagoons in Lagos, the Keita Lagoon in Ghana, the lagoon in Benin, Togo, and Senegal. Wastewaters are dumped directly in the lagoons or in the ocean without treatment. This will, of course, have some negative repercussions on the state of the marine environment. And without healthy marine and coastal ecosystems, there is no way you can implement blue economy principles, in those West African countries. So as far as the state of the, we've been talking about pollution, we've been talking about land degradation, coastal erosion. We also want to indicate like the invasive species, the sargassum seaweeds, which are infesting the shores of West Africa. And of course, some countries, will produce oil and gas, having like, some, let's say, leakages and pollution, related to oil and gas in all those West African countries located in the Gulf of Guinea. So I know that I have a time limit. So the conclusion on this very specific point is that the current state of marine and coastal environment in West Africa is in question, is in jeopardy. Doesn't mean, the proper requirements, to implement the blue economy principles. Next slide, please. Now, I think this is not the, can you come back? Yes. With regard to the governance of the maritime sector of the ocean economy in West Africa, it's scattered. It's scattered. There are so many stakeholders. I think my predecessor was talking about the different departments, involved in the ocean governance. In our countries, you have mine, oil and gas, agriculture, tourism, the national defense, home affairs. There are so many stakeholders. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Excuse my English, but from where I come from, we speak French. It's fragmented. The fragmentation of ocean governance in West Africa is a limiting factor. There is no coordination amongst, all the different stakeholders, that play a vital role in the sustainable management of marine and coastal resources. This is an important factor that we need to consider before we answer the main question of the presentation. With regard to governance, yes, that's the conclusion. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yes, thank you. It goes without saying that there are three crises of the ocean sector in Africa. We have the crisis of the state of the environment. And of course, we know we have the crisis, the governance crisis, of course, because I've already explained, it's fragmented. Everybody, plays, in his own. There's kind of a silo kind of approach, with regard to the sustainable management of marine resources that can lead to the implementation of the blue economy principle. And finally, there is a crisis of inaction. The cost of not taking action is pretty important. I'm not going to give you figures right now, but we'll go to the conclusion. I will give you a couple of data. With regard to the crisis situation, the question that we should ask ourselves is how we turn this crisis situation into an opportunity or into a series of opportunities. Next slide, please. There is indeed the possibility in West Africa. You will see countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and even Senegal importing 20%, 80% actually of the fish needs. The protein, human protein, that they need is imported, 80%. So we're talking about a lot of money with a lot of zeros in the national budget that is used to buy fish, from abroad. While there is an opportunity, because science actually solves many problems, to do some sea farming or maybe to have a sustainable fishing practices in our countries. So applying the blue economy principle will provide an opportunity or series of opportunities in the sector of fisheries and aquaculture. Next slide, please. The second opportunity I see is related to shipping and port-related activities. You will remember in 1959, the federal government of Nigeria created, for those who are old like me, the Nigerian National Shipping Line. You see them, about 21 or 31 vessels, going left and right, transporting goods, from Nigeria and from abroad. The thing is that this company has disappeared. It's been liquidated in 1994, I guess. And now Nigeria, relies on some foreign companies, to transport the goods. You cannot have control on your economy if you don't have control over the transportation tools, for import and exports in your country. And ports, we all know that if you actually if you put a port in a region, in a city, there will be some development, socio-economic development impacts on all the population located in a radius of about 100 kilometers. So I think Nigeria, when you have ports like Wari, Port Harcourt, Akpakpa, Nigeria is setting the road, for other West African countries to have specialized ports so that those ports can contribute to the generation of wealth and socio-economic benefits. Next slide, please. Renewable energy. There's wind energy, thermal energy. You will all agree that in most of the West African cities, there were power shortage. Last time I was in Abuja and even in Port Harcourt, that was the case. I don't know whether the situation has evolved, but we have an alternative. We have options, with renewable energies. I would call them ocean-based energy, like wind energy. It's time now that African countries, West African countries, seriously look at this opportunity in terms of having wind turbines, generating and offering electricity for our population. Next slide, please. Coastal tourism and real estate. At the beginning of my presentation, I was explaining that we dump liquid and solid waste without treatment in the ocean or in the lagoons. That causes a real problem. In other countries in the world, those who are familiar, with London, they have a river called Thames. In France, they have in Paris the Seine. In Geneva, they have Lake Geneva or Lac Léman. The most expensive land around, this on the shores of those rivers, lakes, and oceans all over the world. But in Africa, because we actually don't care about the quality of being or living on the shores of the oceans, of the lagoons, and the lakes. There's heavy pollution that doesn't provide the opportunity for the development of proper coastal tourism and real estate development. You will see that tourists will come from China all over the world, not only, not really to enjoy our cities, they go for coastal-based tourism, natural resources-based tourism. So if we don't take care, of the coasts and the shores of our countries in West Africa, the Blue Economy principles, will not be able to be implemented. Next slide, please. Next. Thank you. Next. Thank you. Before I go to the fourth item in terms of how we turn the crisis into an opportunity, there's something I want to say. There's what we call Blue Flag. It's an international certification that is very well known in the tourism sector, whereby they indicate the quality of swimming water. How good is that, according to the WHO standards? So tourists, before they come to your country, they check on the internet, what is the quality of the water, where they're supposed to swim, where they're supposed to fish, and etc. And they go and they don't go. As far as we're concerned, there are only two countries in Africa, I think South Africa and Tunisia, which actually met those criteria of good water quality, for swimming purposes. So having said that, I'm now moving on to another opportunity that have not yet been considered in African countries is deep sea mining. Deep sea mining, yeah, there is mine. There's gold, silver, zircon, cobalt, manganese, and of course oil, in the deep sea, in the continental shelf of West African countries, but it has not yet been considered or exploited. And there is long debate actually in the UN currently going on what we call areas beyond national jurisdiction. And mining is one of the items that they are considering. So African countries or West African countries must also be ready to participate in this debate and make sure that they have the cut of the exploitation of deep sea mining. Next slide, please. And agriculture, of course. On the right of my presentation, you have a table. I'll give you one example. Coconuts. There is a market of 61 million tons of coconuts, sell all over the world. One coconut is sold in Europe, €1. That's a lot of money. And African countries or West African countries are not playing a role at all, while we have the ecosystem that will help to grow coconut trees and etc. So I will conclude on agriculture by saying that coconut is a good example, because in coconut you can use everything: the leaves, the milk, the oil, the whatever, everything, the fibers, to do something. So there is a need to consider also that opportunity as far as agriculture is concerned. Next slide. So I will conclude, this with the cross-sectoral aspects. When you invest in blue economy, you also invest in gender, in women, because they play a role. The smoke fish, they go and buy fish and sell it in the markets. Water and food security is very correlated with the implementation of blue economy principles in terms of opportunity. And of course, there will be poverty reduction. As long as you create wealth and you distribute, amongst the community. The beginning of my presentation, I was saying that it's surprising that, regions of our countries in West Africa that are endowed with so much wealth, there are poor people around there. Those people living on the shores, you will see that sometimes they don't have access, to safe drinking water, to school, basic health infrastructures. While there's fish, there is sand, there's opportunity, for wind energy, for shipping and transportation. And of course, this will lead to the creation of what we call blue jobs. It means that jobs related, to coastal-based tourism, to shipping and port activities, to fisheries, and etc. And another sector that we didn't mention is that the shipyard industry. Africa, we're using boats, vessels a lot, for transportation of our goods, for transportation of people, for fishing, but we don't build those ships right now in Africa. So there's an opportunity that one may want to consider. Next slide, please. And this brings me to the conclusion, and actually the main question of the presentation, whether West African states are ready to implement the blue economy principles in their territories. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, but the answer is no, because the preconditions, the main precondition actually is to have a healthy marine and coastal ecosystem. And I'm sorry to draw that conclusion. The marine and coastal ecosystem health is not inadequate. It's heavily polluted. We do not really take care of it. The governance is fragmented, not only at the national level, but also at the regional level. The principle of the drift, something happening upstream will have repercussions, downstream. So those countries, do not communicate among themselves. So then when there is a pollution in country A, it will go all the way down to country B, C, D, and then we cascade down to all the countries. And we don't have like the proper mechanisms for cooperation amongst countries. So that's my response to that question. And I will conclude my presentation of this morning. Madam Facilitator, how much minute I have? Hello? Can you hear me, or am I alone?
No. I said you're almost done, but we allow you to conclude.
Thank you.
Conclude. Just conclude, and that is it.
Thank you very much. I will conclude my presentation with a quote. So next slide, please. It's a quote from President Obama. I got it from the U.S. Ocean National Policy. It was in July 2010 when President Obama was President of the United States of America. And I'm going to read out. The ocean, our coast, and the Great Lakes are among our most treasured resources. They are an integrated part of our national identity and our future. A healthy marine environment feeds our nation, fuels our economies, supports our cultures, provides and creates jobs, gives mobility to our armed forces, enable safe movement of goods, and provide places for recreation. Healthy, productive, and resilient oceans, coasts, and Great Lakes contribute significantly to our quality of life. My dream is that we have the same behavior, we have the same vision, statement as far as the implementation of blue economy principles in West Africa, and we also, give us the means and the resources, to proceed that way. So finally, according to the Center for Blue Economy, it's based in Monterey, it's a university in the US, in the New Mexico. They have data in 2014 that the coastal economy contributed to the US GDP of about like 83%. US GDP in 2014, it's a lot of money, 17,000 billion US dollars. Nigeria, which is the richest country in Africa, GDP is 500 million US dollars. Here we're talking about 17 billion, and out of the 17 billion US dollars, 83.7% is coming from the coastal economy. My dream again is that for West African countries to reach that level and alleviate poverty, create wealth and distribute, so that we can make this stepping stone towards those developed countries, coastal developed countries, which actually are taking full advantage of the sustainable management of the marine and coastal resources. So, Madam Facilitator, ladies and gentlemen, dear Nigerian fellows, this is the quintessential of my presentation of this morning, and thank you very much for your attention. Over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abubamba. You've told us the truth we should know, and it will really help us to have a solid foundation to build on the blue economy. You quoted President Obama, and his slogan has always been that, oh yes, we will. And we note all you have said, and we'll build on all those things, and I'm sure that we will actually. But before I go on to summarize the presentations of every panelist, may I ask you, Mr. Abubamba, based on your experience with United Nations and relating it with what you're really seeing in Africa, the situation as it is, as bad as it is, we are still trying to walk out of the COVID-19 pandemic. What do you think will still be the effect of this COVID-19 on a situation that we know that is bad enough already? What do you think is the impact? How do you think it will really worsen the situation or not?
The COVID-19 pandemic has affected and is still affecting the maritime sector, the ocean economy. If you take, for instance, shipping and ports-related activities, because of the barrier measures, the social distance measure, because of the actually for most of the countries, they've reduced the national production in many sectors, and so there's less goods, to be transported, from ports to ports. And the second actually impacts that we need to consider in terms of ocean economy is on the how they call it, tourism. People do not travel anymore. They don't travel either for leisure, either for business or professional purposes. So we have to face that. I think in Europe they've already started, to tell themselves we will live with COVID-19, whether we like it or not. We're part of our daily life, and we need to continue, and we need to think of alternatives. But there are some other subsectors, of the blue economy, which are not, or which have not been affected by the C-19, such as the energy sector, the fishery sector. So let's say that the opportunities are still there, and we should continue, as far as West African countries are concerned, to work on the natural capital basis, on which we will build, the implementation of blue economy principles. And once we've done that, we should also address, the governance issue, which have already been explained in my presentation. And then, we'll have met all the requirements, to start really the implementation of blue economy principles in West African countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again. And may I now try to do a summary of all we have had this morning. And we're starting with Mr. Ni Yusuf, that represented Mr. Loye Jayola, the CEO of Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Mr. Yusuf tried to let us know that Nigeria is aware of the potentials we have in the marine environment, and he also pointed to the threats that we have also, and then looking at both, he still addressed ways that we can still speak to those threats and then use venture into blue economy as a way to enhance the economic situation of Nigeria, and also spoke to the fact that NESG, knowing the importance of the sector, has now, and that it must be driven by the private kind of, we have the support of the government, and then the private sector will lead it. You know, that's what he's now expecting, that the outcome of this conversation will also will also decide, but kind of decide the discussion further that we have on it during the summit of the NESG in 2000 and NESG 26 session. Yeah. So after that, we had Mr. Dr. Paul Adileku representing the Honorable Minister of Transportation, and in his capacity as the coordinator of the National Blue Economy Agenda, he still spoke very closely to Mr. Yusuf too. But the summary of it is that he still mentioned the opportunities, the threats, and then referred to the fact that we'll use the African Maritime Strategy, that is the EMIS in 2050, and we use the agenda, the sectorial guideline we have there to develop Nigerians' version, you know, and that it will be all inclusive, and that the coordinating ministry will liaise with Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency and other stakeholders, other ministry departments and agencies, and then develop a roadmap for the Nigerian approach. We listen to Mr. Adekola Oyenuga. Adekola Oyenuga spoke from his perspective, from the experiences gathered in Norway, what he saw that is happening in Norway, living in Norway, and also working there on blue economy. And the summary of what he was talking about, he was mentioning the integrated maritime strategy approach, kind of the whole of ocean government approach, and phased approach as adopted by Norway. And he mentioned so much also how the Norwegian government tried to do as much as they could inclusiveness policy, and the utmost respect that is given to the marine environment in doing all those, and that they consult a lot, you know, they try to carry all tips along. He tried to also look at what Seychelles, being the best in Africa when it comes to blue economy, is doing. And because the whole essence is to see how we can draw some ideas from these two countries and then build the Nigerian version. And he mentioned how Seychelles has also tried to place a blue economy in the highest at the highest political level. And also mentioning the inclusiveness again, he said at the higher political level, then all the ministries, departments, and agencies, they work together to achieve the mandate of the blue economy sector. So after him, we had Mr. Abu Bamba speaking from his perspective as the executive secretary of the Abidjan Convention Regional Seas. And I repeat again, the Abidjan Convention Regional Seas is the secretariat, is the office that deals with the management and the protection of the coastal and marine environment of West and Central African area. And he really told us the raw truth that we must know if we must really venture into the blue economy. He mentioned the issues that are there, and then such as the illegal fishing and even lack of sustainability of the marine environment. He did emphasize on the fact that if we do not maintain clean marine environment, of course, there will be no basis for us to venture into the blue economy. He spoke extensively. He talked about the riches, of course, and presented the situation as bad as it is, mentioning, because he shows that he's really in Africa, working for United Nations in Africa, and he's really living in Africa, and he's really seeing all that is happening, and he associates himself with all of them. He said the way we work in silos will not really make us to have the venture into the blue economy. And best of all, he tried to answer the question. He drove us to answer by ourselves, of course, whether we are ready, the readiness of West Africa to join, to venture into the blue economy. So he mentioned also the crisis of inaction, you know, and it's as if the opportunities there are very, we are neglecting the opportunities. We have it there, we are not making any efforts to make use of them. The high poverty level in these so-called areas that are actually very, very rich, you know, is really ridiculous. And he mentioned the issue that in driving the blue economy, if we really venture into it, we have to also see the place of women. You know, we have to be gender sensitive. Women are the ones that, of course, we know that they are getting disposable cash from their fishing, from their fishing businesses and things like that for the families. And he really emphasized that gender issues should be put into consideration. He spoke at length and mentioned that if he's asked the question, oh, can we really be, are we ready? That the answer is no. But he gave a comforting quotation from Barack Obama that recognizes the potentials in the ocean and then the need to conserve it. So from all he said, we have to start first of all by ensuring that we have a fit for purpose marine environment. So we are really achieving the aims of this meeting. We are getting the facts that we use as building blocks from all the conversations we've had this morning. So having said that, actually, may I also now invite us to look at the questions, some of the questions we have received from this, we've gotten from participants. The number one question here is how do we create a framework that captures 3 key pillars of the blue economy? And for Nigeria, and I think this question should go to Dr. Paul Adeleko. How do we create a framework that captures the 3 key pillars of blue economy? And the 3 key pillars of blue economy should also align with the pillars of sustainable development, which are economic, social and environment pillars. So since we are talking about the sustainability issues as defined by the United Nations. So Dr. Paul Adeloko, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mogo, for facilitating this very important dialogue on creating and positioning the Nigeria's blue economy for sustainable development. If I understood your question clearly, the participant is asking, how do we capture the 3 key pillars of the blue economy? Well, let me bring our audience to the knowledge that after the Blue Economy Convention that took place in Nairobi, Kenya, about 2-3 years ago, Nigeria came back and tried to domesticate the initiative in the country through the Federal Ministry of Transportation. This was done in partnership under the leadership of the Honorable Minister, Right Honorable Chibuike Amechi. And it was unanimously agreed that in order to effectively drive this initiative, we must involve the presidency. And so the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, was directed by Mr. President to lead the Nigeria Blue Economy Initiative. Through his office, several meetings have been held in order to galvanize support from the public and private sectors that will set an agenda, a political agenda, a social agenda, incorporating the office of the Senior Special Assistant on Sustainable Development Goals, because all the goals under SDG today are deeply tied into the Blue Economy initiative that Nigeria is trying to drive. That cannot be done in isolation from the leadership of the country through the presidency. And that is why the vice president was mandated to drive this initiative and anchored from the Federal Ministry of Transportation, where the Honorable Minister has more often than ever declared his support at all events relating to this initiative. Let me also mention that NIMASA, as the driving and implementing agency for the ministry, ably chaired and directed by Dr. Felicia Mogo, has worked tirelessly to organize a series of events. And since the advent of COVID-19, I believe that between the ministry, NIMASA, and other stakeholders, this is one more effort we're having today to ensure that the public is made aware of our strident efforts to ensure that Nigeria keys into what other countries are doing, like Norway, Seychelles, and others, in ensuring that we're not left behind in the Blue Economy initiative. Ultimately, the job creation initiative, the boost to Nigeria's tourism, the alternative to oil and gas as a source of revenue can all be derivable from the Blue Economy that all of us are discussing today. Let me also mention that the partnership of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group is another laudable step in ensuring that through a PPP arrangement with all stakeholders, nobody is left behind as we galvanize support across the length and breadth of all critical stakeholders in Nigeria to achieve what this meeting today is aimed at realizing. So let me put on record that we from the ministry and the presidency are committed to working with all and sundry to ensure that economically, politically, and socially, all stakeholders are brought together to ensure that Nigeria achieves its objective alongside other nations in driving the Blue Economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul Adeliku, for this explained response to the question. May I also state the next question? It says, what is Blue Economy all about? And what is the place of African youths in this? I think the question is for Mr. Abu Bamba and Mr. Oyenuga. Yeah, so Abu Bamba will tell us the place of youth from the African perspective, and Oyenuga from your living and working in Norway, so that we can also add that to our agenda, because we have a teeming youth population that is also a huge resource that will enable us to break the Mr. Abu Bamba or Oyenuga, can you kick off?
Thank you, Madam Facilitator. There is no universally accepted definition for the blue economy. Actually, some people, have mentioned Seychelles, which is like one of the African champions, and Mauritius and South Africa to some extent. For Seychelles, the notion of blue economy refers to those economic activities that directly or indirectly take place in the ocean and coastal areas. Use outputs from the ocean and also put goods and services into ocean's activities. But ultimately, well-managed blue economy activity, and I think this is what we need to consider, will contribute to sustain economic prosperity, as well as social, cultural, and environmental well-being. The place of Africa in all of this is that how we can take full ownership of our marine and coastal resources and turn them into activities which actually will bring prosperity, social and environmental well-being. We should not have any other objective than that. We should not be saying that we will conserve and protect the natural resources. We should do that only if it has some positive repercussions on our daily lives. And while Madam Facilitator, I have the floor, I want to say one or two things I forgot to say in my presentation. I forgot to mention among the preconditions the security factor. You know, we can't have blue economy if, you know, our oceans and seas and also the shores are not safe. You know, tourists will not come. And finally, I think Nigeria has so many comparative advantages, you know, for the implementation of blue economy. They have this series of ports. You know, you have Wari, Port Harcourt, Akpakpa, and some other ports, you know, throughout the coast. And you're smiling because I know Nigeria so much, although I'm not in Nigeria. and the second comparative advantage is that they've solved the governance problem. They put it under the vice president office. You know, this cross-cutting, you know, going from environment to fisheries to tourism to whatever, the vice president is above, you know, all those departments. So this is a good point that I wanted to talk about. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abubamba. And we are noting all those. And time is almost out of, the moderator herself is running out of time too. So I have to end the question and answer session very soon. We have 3 more questions, but let's just have one now. And it's like this, it goes like this. What will government do to support aspiring potential investors in this regard? So, any of the panelists can speak on that, and I can guess what the government is doing already from what Dr. Paul Adeliku said, and why the government is also networking with the NESG. But can I give the floor to Dr. Paul Adeliku again to tell us what the government is doing to assist aspiring potential private sectors in venturing into the blue economy? Dr. Adeliku, you please have the floor. Thank you.
Dr. Mogo, in answering that question, I think you are aware we are working closely with your office and NIMASA in setting a framework on how all stakeholders will be involved in this initiative. The COVID-19 pandemic has set us back. So it was just in the last several weeks that meetings in this regard began to be held. We've had 2 in Lagos in this regard, and one is set to come up in Abuja early next month. So I will crave your indulgence to say that a roadmap has not been clearly established on how we can involve the youth and the private sector, but that is certainly a key point on the agenda. We will communicate in due course, especially through the Office of Marine Environment Department of NIMASA, our implementing agency. So I'll crave your patience that in the next few weeks, you'll hear from us what roadmap we are rolling out in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Adeliku. And on these notes, I will want to just give the closing remark. And
sorry, facilitator, sorry, very briefly on that very specific point.
Okay.
10 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. We cannot answer, you know, for the government of Nigeria, but we, as the United Nations, we work for governments, and we know what kind of advices, you know, we give to government in Senegal, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, in most of the West African countries. You know, we're working with government. What is the role of the private sector and how the government can help, you know, involving private sector and the youth in the implementation of blue economy at the national or even at the local level. Government will not give you money to invest in this and that sector. Government will facilitate. Government will create the enabling environment for Nigerian investors, banks, or whatever to invest in shipyard, in the ship industry, how to fix vessels, you know, that have problem, how to build vessels, you know, for Nigerian fishermen. And this is one sector. The other sector, and this is valid for Abidjan, Accra, and Lagos, we have traffic jams. You can't circulate. But on the other side, you know, we have lagoons, you know, that are navigable. In a country like Cote d'Ivoire, there are 3 companies that are exploiting the lagoon system in Abidjan. You can move from one point to another because there's no traffic on the lagoon. in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. So the government has created the enabling environment, for this company to invest money in buying vessels, in making sure that, and fixing the hydrology and etc. The other sector, what the government can create the enabling environment is in the tourism sector. And this is where the youth, will intervene. Say, why don't we give, to young people getting together the responsibility of the contract, to clean the beaches so that local tourists as well as international tourists can come and enjoy, these very nice places of our countries. So this is a nutshell. I can elaborate some more, but I'm pretty sure that we'll have the opportunity to work with you and the Minister of Transportation of Nigeria and Office of the Vice President to elaborate a bit more on what we believe that governments can do to reach the level of countries like Norway, Seychelles, and etc. Over.
Mr. Aplamba, we know your passion for developing out the African region, and that's why we called you as a panelist. And we didn't ask, but we took it for granted that when we call upon you to also support the development of the roadmap for Nigeria, Blue Economy, that you will be there with us. And thank you for really reaffirming that. Thank you very much. And anytime we are meeting, I know I'm not speaking for the office, the coordinator, Dr. Paul Adeleku, but I know he supports our getting the best hands in doing that, and will continue to associate with you. Thank you for sparing your time. I don't know whether we can also have a brief, just maybe 1 minute on what is happening in Norway, how the government is supporting the private sector. Mr. Oyenuga, can you just give us brief idea of what is happening there? Very brief. We are running out of time.
Yes. I think. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes. I think the critical thing, as Mr. Bamba has mentioned, is the role of the government is to facilitate and to create an enabling environment so that the private sector can move in. But uniquely in Norway, in the Norwegian case, as against models you find in other places, is the government is also a significant leader in steering the process. So the government doesn't just facilitate. In Norway, the government is also a key player in the blue economy. So you have, because the blue economy requires an ecosystem of organizations and departments that work together. So the government can mandate, because we talk about an integrated ocean management. Integrated ocean management, first of all, means that all the relevant ministries and relevant sectors have to work together. They have to talk to each other. So when it comes to the oceans, no more silo mentality. And it's the government that is best positioned to ensure that all the relevant ministries sit at the same table and talk to each other regularly. That is one. Then the government can also, because the input that the government needs, the government sets up the panels of experts in order to come up with the roadmap. Now, for this purpose, right, for these panels of experts to come up with the right experts, they need to draw from academic institutions, research institutions, people who are on the ball with the science. So the government can ensure that you have the right scientific input coming into the roadmap. So the government has a significant role to play. And then lastly, the government should also create a correct atmosphere so that you can have adequate consultations between the private sector, the public sector, between the local communities. So the government is also a convener of the stakeholders who are going to provide essential input into the roadmap. So that is the way it's happening in Norway. The government is very much part of the picture. Without the government, this can't happen, right? So I hope we'll also take a few lessons from that in Nigeria's case.
Thank you so very, very much, Mr. Oyenuga. And having said that, now I will have to now give the closing remark. And this closing remark, I'm giving it on behalf of Nigerian Economic Summit Group. I'm giving it on behalf of the CEO of Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Mr. Layole Jayola. And we really thank all of you for coming. And we can see we've achieved a lot now. We have to come up with the report and now speak to the report. And we are sure that you'll be with us throughout the journey. We're all in the boat together, and we are sure that we're going to have smooth sail, no matter how bad the tide is. We are very optimistic, and we also realists. We are going to change the tide, change the course of the sail to make us get to blue economy, considering what you've all presented as the threats. And I don't know whether the DG of NEMASA is here, but he had an emergency call to be at a meeting, and he will have also given you the perspective of what Nigerian has done. But nevertheless, we are going to crystallize, put together all you have said this morning, and then get back to you again, because it's a quick journey that we've embarked on. And we have the privilege of calling on to you, Mr. Abubamba and Mr. Oyenuga, and we have the support of the Ministry of Transportation, coordinating for the Office of the Vice President. And already there is a huge cooperation between Nigerian Economic Summit Group and the coordinating Ministry of Transportation. Nigerian Economic Summit Group is hugely part of the secretariat, and it's also coordinating the private sector aspect in a way. And I'm sure that we'll get the output will be great eventually. So having said that, I want to thank everyone and let you know that you're going to get the report of this meeting very soon. And the next step